Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. Department of Statistics Malaysia report that Malaysia experienced 2.9% inflation in October. It is 0.7% higher than the previous month. Inflation is an economic phenomenon where usually it is known as a rise of price of goods and service over a period. As a consumer, we have to spend more money to get the same amount of goods and service that they bought the previous time. However, the continuous increase in price not only has a negative effect on the economy, but also it will affect the individual and society, which tend to increase in living costs. The higher inflation rate, the higher living costs. In Islamic perspective, inflation should not be occurred. Inflation should be zero. Even though inflation can happen because of war, natural disaster, or because of market manipulation that cannot be avoided, the government can develop policy to stabilize the price according to Sharia. Economic problems arise during this time that occurred because of irregularities committed by humans, such as an unbalanced distribution of wealth and the lack of gratitude to God for the blessing. Even in Sustainable Development Goal, they want to achieve a zero inflation, lowering unemployment, and also rising in gross domestic product so that the economy are in a solid shape.
Al-Makrizi, or known as Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Abdul Qadir, on his journey through life, there was an outbreak that hit Cairo and all of Egypt. So this is one of the reasons why Al-Makrizi wrote his first economic book. Al-Makrizi published a book in which he discussed various disasters that occurs in his country during the government of the Egyptian monarchy and how this disaster resulted in a rise of a good price, which is referred to inflation. His writing was inspired by Ibn Khaldun, one of his teachers. He knows a lot of things like calculation, hadith, nahu, interpretations, fiqh, and history from the prominent scholar of his periods. According to Al-Makrizi, inflation may be divided into two groups, depending on the variables that contribute to it. Inflation induced by natural components and inflation caused by human mistake. Al-Makrizi argued that the appointment of a government official based on the corruption rather than ability would result in the appointment of people who lack credibility in important and honorable positions in all branches of government. To tackle the problem of inflation, one approach or action can be taken is to eradicate all the causes that contribute to it, such as corruptions, excessive tax, and excess currency creations. According to Al-Makrizi, numerous commodity and other crops suffer destructions when a natural disaster occurs, causing their supply to fall to dangerous low levels. As a kind of recompensation, they impose new tax and raise existing tax rate, resulting in an excessive tax structure that stress out the peoples. In addition, Al-Makrizi said that inflation might occur due to a mistake made by a human being. All of this will also result in a reduction in the number of employees, while an increase in undeveloped land, eventually leading to food shortage and price rise. Theory may be solved by using a variety of measures, including monetary policy and location-oriented credits. Landowners who want to have a good time will increase the cost of renting land, thus raising the tax burden on farmers. When they are in authority, these officials begin to misuse their position of power to further their interest to meet their financial commitments and enjoy their pleasure of life. In the next portion of his explanations, Al-Makrizi goes into the further depth regarding the issue of inflation that has arisen. As we all know, farmers were the majority group in society at that time, which has a significant impact on their economic well-being and the industries in which they work. As a result of the calamity, supply were limited, causing price to rise rapidly in general. Consequently, economic transaction has slowed, if not completely stopped, allowing hungers, disease, and human debt to grow. The demand for this item, on the other hand, has rocketed because of their critical importance in daily life. They are willing to sacrifice all their properties as a lease or a gift that has implicit meaning for a desired position and to satisfy all their greedy and worldly lusts. As a result, farmers are forced to deal with both sides. Consequently, farmers lose their drive to provide labor and product since they are not receiving a fair return.
Move on to the second question, which is how riba is haram and how the Islamic bank deals with the inflation. Before we go further, let's start with what is the connection between riba and inflation. Inflation is when the consumer purchasing power decrease due to the market price increase. The economic use interest to control the riba. Riba is an Arabic word that has same meaning with interest. For example, an increase of 10% in loan will reduce the purchasing power of people since people doesn't have much money. However, riba is haram to be involved in economy. Here's the worldview from Judaism, Christianity, and Islam on how riba is prohibited. Firstly, the Judaism allows Jews to give loan to the others with the intention to pleasing the God only and not to gain any profit. On the other hand, Christianity rejects the idea of riba in an economic system since riba is the poisonous banking regulation that will make the poor become poorer and rich become richer. Lastly, according to Islam, wealth is a blessing and also the tools used by Allah to examining and punishing His servants. Being unfair to the others is very prohibited in Islam. That's why a Muslim must use the wealth in a correct way according with Allah and Prophet Mohamed. So, how does Islamic banking deal with inflation without involvement of riba? Firstly, due to the fact that interest cannot be imposed in agreement, the both parties must agree to fix a fee or profit sharing. Sukuk can be defined as an aggregate and undivided shares of ownership in tangible asset tied to the certain project and investing activity. It has the same ideas of risk sharing and minimum ambiguity applies to the retail bank client. As a result, an investor in Sukuk does not hold a financial obligation owned by the bond issuer but rather a piece of asset tied to investment. Lastly, yet important, takaful. Takaful is an Islamic instrument that functions as an substitute for insurance by allowing consumers to pool their resources and operate as a group. Like a regular insurance, the resources are managed and invested for growth, but at the end of fixed time, the takaful split the earnings with the shareholders.
Okay, so now we move to the next question, which is how does zakat reduce inflation? As we know that zakat is a mandatory process for Muslims and is regarded as a form of worship. The 8 recipients of zakat funds is already specified in Al-Quran Surah At-Tawbah verse 60. They are obligated to pay 2.5% on the total value of property or wealth that they are having in total. In an Islamic economy, zakat is an essential institution framework for poverty reduction and economic welfare. But in the context of the economy, zakat has a broad meaning on both macro and micro scale. Given that zakat can be used as a fiscal policy instrument in a country or in the public sphere of Islam, and that zakat can also play an important role in the allocation and distribution of zakat to the recipient. The question is, how can zakat at 2.5% rate influence economic growth? The muzaki, who is known as the payer of zakat, will transfer to a group of people who will receive zakat, is mustahik. As the result, the revenue will be ready to spend. If zakat is administered in a fair and trustworthy manner, it will improve people's well-being. As we know, increased income will raise consumption while also allowing them to begin saving in the long run. On the other hand, zakat funds will also make income expectation and wealth levels impossible to rise, causing their spending to rise even more. Zakat funds will increase the consumption and will most likely shift spending away from basic goods and services towards staple or luxury goods and services. Zakat has been found in several studies that it has minimized the poverty gap and income gap. The implementations of zakat will have a positive impact on the national saving rate on a macro level because zakat is based on accumulated wealth as well as income. The payment of zakat will encourage people to boost their saving ratio in order to keep their wealth from declining. In fact, saving is not a residual activity in the Islamic perspective, but rather a logical action with a specific group aim, and not to be stacked or used to gamble. People's purchasing power will improve as a result of the distribution of consumptive zakat payment. Zakat in the form of consumptive support, which means mujtahid's purchasing power on a community that it meets their needs, will increase as well. An increase in the product's purchasing power will result in an increase in demand for the production, as well as increase in a firm's production. So the impact of increased production will be the expansions of production capacity, which implies the company will absorb more employees. As a result, the unemployment rate will fall. On the other hand, increased output will result in higher taxes paid to the state, whether corporate tax, value-added tax or income tax.
Then it is proven that zakat can reduce inflation. Therefore, how to encourage public to participate in zakat contribution?
Mostly, people misunderstand zakat as Islamic tax, which is not. Zakat is an amount that is worth 2.5% of wealth, which will distribute to community that need it. Therefore, here are few steps that can be taken.
Firstly is campaign. Campaign is one of the platforms that can create awareness.
To encourage public to participate is by creating awareness campaign that can increase their level of knowledge about zakat. It will help them to know more about the zakat benefits, such as it help reducing inflation, help those who are in need, and increase purchasing power.
Thus, the campaign of zakat should be more to be held in the future to inform and influence the public to participate more in zakat. Second, maintain good communication between zakat institution or staff with the zakat payer.
It is important because it can establish good relationship and can create trust on zakat institution. A study shows that trust on zakat institution is a main factor that influence zakat payer decision to channel their zakat or to discharge the obligation. It can be done by use proper tone when talking and dealing with client, update and inform the client on any changes of zakat procedure, and also ask for their feedback for improvement in the future.
Thus, by maintaining good communication can create trust and will encourage them to participate in performing zakat. Lastly, nowadays all information and transaction can be done by only using our fingertips only. Therefore, to encourage the public to participate in zakat is by ease the payment process of the zakat by doing online transaction.
Online transactions are very well known nowadays because it is not only easing the process of paying zakat but also save time. Since the pandemic COVID-19 started, public are advised to practice new norms which encourage to use online transaction. Many zakat institutions has introduced online zakat system, for instance through app called My EC service, through e-zakat facilities and online banking portal such as Bank to You and Islamic Bank. E-wallet platforms such as Boost also introduced zakat fitrah payment.
This shows that online instant payment much faster than traditional method, save costs and also contactless. In short, by encouraging more people to pay zakat can reduce the inflation effect. The more people participate in paying zakat, the more positive impact zakat on inflation.
When high inflation occurs, it can hurt and give benefits to different groups of society according to circumstances and situation.
And the question is, who has more benefits during inflation?
Increasing price, debtors have an advantage while creditors suffer. When a company or a person takes out a loan to any financial institution, the money they receive today will be repaid with the money they make later. Money today is more valuable than money afterwards. As a result of inflation, debtors may repay the same amount of money but they pay less in goods and services. Debtors may repay back their loan with money that is worth less than it was when they borrowed it. This is due to the fact that the value of money has decreased since they borrowed it. Loans considered halal if they are arranged in a way that's simply based on a profit sharing, trading, buy and sell for the asset and not for paying the interest. The loans are considered halal if the loans are arranged in the form of ijarah rather than riba. In conventional financing, inflation can help a creditor in several ways. It helps creditors during inflation mostly when it comes to extending the new financing. Increasing price indicates that more individuals desire loans to buy a property. Islamic mortgage, usually the borrower and the lender are co-owner of the property. It is not the same as regular lender and borrower, but the lender or bank purchase the property and become the legal owner on borrower behalf. After that, the borrower will make monthly payment. Higher inflation will have no effect on individuals with fixed rate mortgage because the interest rates are fixed. Fixed rate mortgage borrowers may gain from higher inflation because they are repaying money at a lesser value than when it was borrowed, while variable rate mortgage have rates of interest that fluctuated in tandem with the economy, leaving borrowers with a wide range of interest rates and
To
payments.
summarize everything that's been said so far, inflation is an economic phenomenon is caused by a variety of causes. Inflation has been identified as a destabilizing phenomenon that poses a threat to the country's economy and that will have an impact on society. Inflation can have both positive and negative consequences, but it is always a risky condition. It has the potential to make the trading and business worlds uneasy and insecure. In other words, inflation makes the rich richer while making the poor poorer. Indeed, there are differences of conventional inflation and Islamic inflation. The difference in both perspectives shows differences in conventional economics and Islamic economics. According to discussion of the inflation based on Fiqh perspective, Muslim scholars such as al-Muamalat state that inflation happened due to human error and mistake such as excessive inhuman behavior. Therefore, a few suggestions are discussed that can reduce the inflation rate in Islamic ways such as sukuk and takaful to substitute the performing riba and interest in any business transaction. Not only that, but zakat is also one of the alternatives to reduce inflation by lowering zakat payer marginal propensity to consume and also will increase the purchasing power. Higher purchasing power causes the higher demand for production and higher demand for employment. Thus, it also can reduce the employment rate. As a result, encouraging more people to participate in zakat will help to increase the zakat distribution and also to help decrease the inflation rate. As can be seen, inflation affects both the debtor and creditor and has both positive and negative consequences. Finally, in a country with a dual monetary system, the monetary authority is responsible for maintaining financial stability in both the conventional and Islamic monetary systems. People will be more informed and responsible for consumption and production if the inflation rate is effectively managed, which is one of the 12 Sustainable Development Goals. As a result, inflation must be lowered because it can cause significant harm to people. That is all for this news tonight. Thank you so much for watching.